you are able to, there you go, recording in progress. So as we meet here online, we are glad it's easy and convenient for us to meet together, but if you are able to turn on your video or unmute as you wish to, please just feel like this is we are all in a meeting room together, and it's we're all peers, and so please feel free to jump in, chime in anytime. Also, feel free to take advantage of the chat feature. So you can type in anything here, either to the speakers or to everyone. And if you have a question and don't want to chime in at that moment, you can always put your question here in the chat window. So with that, I'll just cover a few quick things. First, our agenda. Jeremy and I are gonna cover a few quick notes and things you might be interested to hear about from Power BI recently released. And then we'll be privileged to hear Mark Leleveld. And Mark, if I mispronounced, please correct me when you can there. But Mark is a very prolific speaker, speaks really all over the world, virtually and in person. He's based in the Netherlands, and he's kind enough to join us this evening where he is and for our afternoon. And then we'll just wrap up here at the end. So just a couple of quick updates. I'd like to remind you that we are transitioning our team site online to community.powerbi.com. Things are a little easier to find there now. Once you're at community.powerbi.com, you click the community menu up here at the top, and all the user groups will be listed when you follow this path. It will actually even just look at your location and look for user groups near you. So if your computer allows that, it will find the Oklahoma group near you. But it's great, you can join any of the groups from there. One thing to keep in mind is you will need a Microsoft account. And another great thing is that this site is really just becoming the hub for the online Power BI community. So if you haven't created an account yet, or you haven't spent much time here, it's worth taking a little time to just browse around. Great blog content, a lot of Q&A. This is where Google's gonna point us more and more. I think this will kind of be like the Stack Overflow for Power BI, if you are familiar with that. This is what the page looks like. It is easier to navigate than the old one. You've got your group info. We'll have discussions here, the member list, and then our events. It's really all you're looking for when you come to the user group site anyway. However, we do need a logo. We've got this guy here looking at the computer, and I'm like, that doesn't look like our group. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like us. So if we can come up with something, Zoe had some good ideas about, can you make a bar chart that incorporates the panhandle of our state somehow? Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a wide open creativity forum for you to submit a logo.
As long as it's not a pie chart, everything should be okay.
Yeah. Oh, wait, a pie chart. Good idea.
The
Oklahoma.
dirtiest word in data visualization, pie chart.
Or I guess as long as it's not like a Tableau logo or something, then yeah, that should be fine. All right. Cool. I did want to mention we will meet again next month, the third Thursday. We try to meet the third Thursday of every month, and we will meet in July. We have Melissa Coates ready to come and speak to us. This is her profile here. I found out if you Google Melissa Coates, she's also a Canadian professional wrestler. Not her, different Melissa Coates is out there. But Melissa is a great contributor to the whole community, and she's put together this really neat resource called the Power BI like end-to-end roadmap. I'm sure we'll get to hear more about it next month. She's going to talk to us about making your organization, how to set up your organization to make it a more data-oriented organization. So that's really excited to hear from her.
Yeah, Melissa has a lot of great content out there. So yeah, that's going to be awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, let's see. The Power BI end-to-end features diagram. Yeah, she's really kind of the starter of this, which is a very helpful kind of resource to just try to get into one picture everything that is going on inside of Power BI. So all you have to do is become an expert in this right here, and then you go.
That's simple. It. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, should be like one Saturday, 4 to 6 hours. Okay, there we go. And then I did, build happened. So check out the sessions. Build is a little more like developer oriented. but there are some Power BI and Power Platform related sessions out there. And I just wanted to give a little teaser here that we are working on an event at OSU to kind of kick off our return to in-person meetings. More details are being worked out about that. The biggest question of details is kind of about they haven't scheduled all their classes yet, so they're scheduling their classes and then booking up the meeting rooms. But it will probably happen like as an all-day event, likely on a Friday in the fall at OSU. And they've even I think they're thinking that like maybe they'll also make it a bit of a fundraising thing. I'm not sure, but they're talking about like having some sweet tickets involved for a football game. So they're kind of trying to line it up with the football schedule, and there's several moving pieces there, but it's happening. And like if it all comes together, it could be a really, really cool event. So more details on that. Stay tuned. September or October should happen. Yeah, so then we always kind of just try to go over a few new features. This month isn't too much because we had already had the May release before last meeting, but we haven't seen the June release yet of the desktop. So I just thought I'd keep this part real short. I did want to let you know there is a new version of the Power BI Report Builder out there. So if you use that to create paginated reports, you may want to download the latest release. If you use the on-premise product of Power BI Report Server, there was I think there's like 3 per year releases on that. There's the May 2021 release is now available. So you have an update available. But one of the neat features that they already had a little video for, I thought was worth showing. You can now embed Power BI into Jupyter notebooks. If you don't know what a Jupyter notebook is, don't worry about it too much. Just maybe check it out sometime when you have a moment. And if you work with data, it's this like kind of like a web-based tool where you can, like this, interlace script and code and visuals and other kinds of content, in this case, a Power BI report. So if you really wanted to show, kind of tell a story that was interactive with data, you could use a Jupyter notebook if you have the right kind of setup. Maybe where you're displaying some data in a table and then displaying a chart, and then, hey, let's look at this whole report at the end of the notebook. I haven't really looked in to see like what else, like could I export data out and then use that farther down in the notebook, or input some data? Probably.
I do think you can access the data set data. That was happened a little while ago. Mark probably knows better than me, but
Cool.
I believe you could access the data previously as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're not familiar with what you're seeing here, normally Jupyter is used for probably development in a few different languages. I think primarily Python is one that is being used, and so that is kind of what we're seeing up there at the top. They're saying from this library Power BI client, import these other kind of features, and then so I'm pretty sure what we're looking at there is Python from import report models. Anyways, yep. Yeah, so probably have a lot of flexibility around what you could do with embedding some Power BI visuals in your Jupyter notebooks. That's pretty neat.
It might give you just full access to the whole Power BI client API, they call it, and that lets you export and hide pages and turn on pages. So anyway, if you use notebooks, this will be real, then you'll be very interested in this. And if not, you might want to check out notebooks and see what you can do with them. So then with that, Jeremy, I think, oops, I might have missed a slide here, Jeremy, I'm sorry. I think you were going to share a little bit about an announcement they made about Salesforce and Power BI.
Yeah, no worries at all. I will grab the screen if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll need to give you the old permission here. In fact, I'm just going to let everybody share the screen. Go ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, there was an announcement on, I guess it was just last Tuesday, that you can now embed your Power BI visuals into Salesforce. And so I will just, let's see here, I'll share my screen. I'm just gonna kind of show you the article that they put out there, and then this article has a a link to a GitHub repo. And so this is the announcement on the Power BI Microsoft blog. So I'll link to this, and then you can see that it also has a link in this to their GitHub repo. And so this GitHub repo kind of shows you all of the details, I guess, of what you'll need to know about setting this up, but we can see kind of a little view of what that would look like. And it's, if you're familiar with embedding Power BI reports at all, it's just going to be your Power BI report inside Salesforce. So know that Salesforce is a big CRM tool, getting a lot of attention since its acquisition of Tableau, actually. So this was kind of a, I don't know how to describe it exactly. I've seen a lot of the people in the Power BI community kind of saying, you know, this is a, I don't want to call it. We've got Power BI inside Salesforce, and Salesforce acquired Tableau, and so you characterize that however you want. I think that it's pretty awesome, so yeah, that's just a quick update on this. I'll shoot out a link in our chat to these couple of articles, and then I also just wanted to mention really quickly that in some of the work that I've been doing recently, I've been doing a lot of work with the shape map visual in Power BI. And I've hunted down a couple of different shape maps, custom shape maps that you can import and use. And so one of them is a zip code shape map of Oklahoma, which is pretty awesome. If any of you are interested in seeing that, or getting access to it, I'll shoot that over to you. Just let me know. The other one that I actually had to create for this project that I was on was a shape map specifically for the zip codes in Tulsa County. So I did quite a bit of work on getting that set up, and without the county boundaries, it's kind of hard to tell that you're looking at Tulsa County, because again, we're looking at zip codes. But anyways, again, if anybody has an interest in Oklahoma zip code shape map or the zip codes associated with Tulsa County, shoot me a message and I will I'll shoot you an email with that. You can import that and use those custom shape maps.
Shape map is anyhow an interesting visual, because I think it's in preview for well, many years already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with a preview anymore, if you ask me.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a pretty mature feature by now. There's still some things that I would like to see on it, Mark, like the zoom on the shape map is not the greatest, so I'd like to see a little bit of work done on that. But you know, it's a great visual.
Exactly. And I like the fact that you can easily customize it without paying an expensive license like you have to do with ArcGIS or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can easily customize it yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I need to check it out. I have to confess, I'm still kind of a map box guy, but that can get, depending on how you use it, it can become expensive too. So, yeah. You know, I think this is a good time then to transition over to Mark Lelleveld. So Mark was, again, kind enough to respond to a bit of a call for speakers that I put out on Slack, and said, hey, I really need a speaker here for my event, someone who could do it on pretty short notice. And when I saw that Mark responded, I was really thrilled, because he has a profile that shows many different sessions that he's done before and during the pandemic. He has sessions on data modeling, making things responsive and mobile. But one that jumped out to me was he had a session specifically about how you can use AI inside of Power BI. And so I thought, you know, we haven't done enough emphasis maybe here in our group about the AI features. And here we have someone who has really looked into it. So so with that, Mark, I'd like to turn it over to you, and everybody please welcome Mark.
Sure, thanks for introducing. Let's see where it is. Share button, share screen.
It may be at the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, It's always fun because for me, screen 1 is on my right side and screen 2 is left. Don't ask me why. And in fact, it is one big monitor, but okay. So hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I was asked by Brent to present the session, and I definitely directly responded to it like, yeah, why not? So if everything goes well, you should be able to see my screen right now. And I will tell you today my view on AI capabilities in Power BI, and especially to make AI accessible for everyone. Some of the features that I will mention today are premium specific, Power BI premium specific, and I will mention which ones are premium specific, but most of them are not. Other than that, I like to always introduce this topic by AI. What exactly is it? So when I started preparing this session for the very first time, which is I think more than a year ago, I started typing artificial intelligence in Google, and Google obviously had a lot of results because Google is monitoring all of us all day long. But even Bing responded with a useful result. So the results here are in Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands, so natively everything directs to Dutch for me. But as you can see, there are a lot of articles around this topic, and most of them are like future related, and where should we position artificial intelligence in the future? How will this take over our work? So I was like, okay, what exactly is artificial intelligence meaning to our day-to-day work with Power BI? So that was kind of my starting point. So during today's session, I will briefly introduce you to the topic artificial intelligence. And then slowly we're moving towards the implementation of artificial intelligence inside Power BI. Before that, I was already introduced to you by Brent, but I will very briefly do it over, and we'll keep it short this part. My name is Mark Lelyveld, so it was pretty close, Brent. Really, you did a really good job. I've heard much worse pronunciations of my last name. I'm working as a data and AI consultant at McCall in the Netherlands. We're a Microsoft implementation partner across Europe, currently covering 3 countries, but planning to expand to many more in the near future. Doing that for over 3.5 years right now, but active in the Power BI scene, so to say, for 5 years. Actively blogging on my own website, data-mark.com. And I like to combine my 2 biggest hobbies, which is Power BI and beer, which leads to Power Beer. So I actually set up shirts for this, merchandise. You can get coasters like I have here. So coasters, everything, stickers. It's just a fun side project.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, it kind of started with it all started with a bad Friday afternoon drinks joke, but it turned out to be a thing. Other than that, since this year, proudly awarded as or recognized as Fast Track Recognized Solution Architect by the Power BI Customer Advisory Team, and 3 years in a row Data Platform MVP. Enough about me. 2 more things. As I talk about the Netherlands, I live in the Netherlands, but I don't live in Amsterdam. So those things are not the same. Usually when you tell people that you're from the Netherlands, oh, you live in Amsterdam. Well, no. But I live very close to another place, which you might know from the cheese. You see just next to the arrow, there's a place that you probably pronounce as Gouda, which is a place where they create a lot of cheese. I pronounce it like Gouda. That's the Dutch pronunciation of it. But it's like 4 or 5 kilometers from my home. So I live very close there, and I eat a lot of cheese. Other than that, Brent already mentioned it. I spoke at a lot of places. This is a small map from 2019, when I traveled to, I believe, 14 different countries for public speaking at different user groups, at different big events as well, conferences, just because I like to do this. And I love to share my knowledge, so why should I keep it to myself if I can share it with all of you? With that, let's jump into this topic of today and don't spend any more time on me because I'm not important. It's about the topic of today. What we will cover today is a brief introduction to AI, then how this fits into the reporting and dashboarding that we're doing nowadays. And of course, we will run you through all the features that Power BI offers today with artificial intelligence. And of course, I like to take a risk every now and then, so I'm going to do a lot of live demos. So let's hope that the demo gods are with me and that everything continues to work. Usually this should be fine. First, have a look at artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, when I started investigating this topic, I also jumped into terms like machine learning, artificial neural networks, deep learning, and many more different topics. So for me, it was like, yes, okay, but what exactly is artificial intelligence? But in fact, artificial intelligence is the first layer in this whole scene, and the first layer that we as a human being can still understand what it's doing. So if we look at the definition of it, it is any technique that enables machines, computers, to solve tasks that we, like human beings, can do ourselves as well. So, well, when I was reading this, I was like, yes, but aren't we just automating stuff instead of that we're adding something new? But okay, let's search a little bit further. All the way to the bottom, we have the deep learning topic, which is something that I don't understand, at least. It is something that machine learning combined with neural networks with, well, a lot of things that probably a data scientist can do and maybe understand a little bit what it's doing, or at least train those models. But for me, as a data analytics consultant working with Power BI, I'm fine with doing artificial intelligence, but deep learning is definitely another piece of cake. But what exactly is artificial intelligence? In fact, it all comes down to 4 different elements. It all relates to data, obviously. So we start with data, and based on this data, we need to sense this data. We need to understand what it is. Then we need to reason the data. So we need to make sure that we know what we're talking about. We engage it. Finally, we learn from it. And then this loop starts all over again. So in fact, we try to learn from the past in order to make sure that we do better in the future. That's kind of my interpretation and my take from this. But if we know that these 4 things are happening with artificial intelligence, let's have a look at what we already do in today's world that we all use a lot nowadays, where artificial intelligence is implemented. First of all, computer vision. Personally, I use an iPhone. And for example, if you have an iPhone and you made a picture of your family or your friends, maybe you've noticed a few times that an iPhone and many other phones are capable of detecting persons on a picture and recognizing that this one person is coming back on many different pictures. So this is what we call computer vision. On the screen, I got an example where you, for example, can identify a traffic light, cars, persons, or a bus. So based on a picture or a video, we are capable of identifying objects or persons on a picture. This is what we call computer vision. Then we have voice recognition, and voice recognition can be things like Siri, for example, or Cortana, or whatever voice recognition system you prefer to use. Personally, I use Siri, obviously, as I use an iPhone. And funny enough, I connected my entire home to it. So I can turn on the lights, I can turn on the heating. Please don't, because it's already pretty warm here. But there are many different things that you can do with voice recognition. And it only responds to my voice, so not if my girlfriend is talking to my phone. Those kind of things is what we call voice recognition. Then we have robotics. Now, robotics is typically something that we see a lot in the manufacturing area. So think about car manufacturing, where we kind of automated stuff that we in the past did as humans, but now we let the machine do it for us, which is much faster, more efficient, and less risk for faults or anything. And of course, there's many more, but these 3 are, for me, the ones that were reasonable to explain and something we can all imagine what it's actually doing. But is AI actually innovation? Honestly, I think it's not. AI is not innovation, because AI does not understand the real world. It can learn from things, it can optimize things, it can detect a pattern, inform us and inspire us. But if we look at the right-hand picture, which was one that I found and I really loved actually, as long as we don't tell AI what water is, it will never understand what water is. So AI lives in water, yet it doesn't know what water is. So we have to tell artificial intelligence what it needs to do, otherwise it will never get it and it will never work. With that, let's have a look at what Microsoft is doing with AI. Microsoft started with AI implementations back in 2016. So it's already 5 years ago when they started with vision recognition. So think about object recognition and human parity. Think about the things that I just explained to you with recognizing traffic lights, with recognizing pictures or humans on pictures, etc. In 2017, they added speech recognition. Think about Cortana, and also machine translation, which can be implemented in apps or, for example, translating speech to text. Finally, on the right-hand side, we have language, where you can think about cognitive services, if you're familiar with that, to detect which language something is or extract key phrases from a text, and many more things. So 2018, already 3 years ago, but something they actually did in May 2019 with AI was creating the world's first AI whiskey. So they created a whiskey all based on AI technology, based on everything they learned from the past and wanted to do better in the future. So they wanted to create an AI, a recipe of a whiskey that tastes as good as previous award-winning whiskeys. And they did that by creating many different aspects. So they used the sales data from previous award-winning whiskeys, used 70 million recipes from other whiskeys, ingredients of previous award-winning whiskeys, customer preferences, and they all put that in the Azure Cloud Platform and use Azure Cognitive Services and many other things to identify which are the aspects that are coming back in all these different whiskeys. And with that, they were able to create the first world's award-winning whiskey. I think a pretty nice thing to achieve, but in the end, I think human beings could have done the same. But it probably would have taken more time, obviously. So how does this all relate to reporting and dashboarding nowadays? Everyone engages with software, and everyone in particular, as we're in a Power BI user group, engages with Power BI. So everyone within an organization should be capable to work with Power BI, or at least consume what is provided to them in Power BI. With that, it is also interesting to look at different types of reporting, different types of how they approach their data. Typically, you can identify 3 different topics, which is describing something, declaring what happened, or exploring new data in order to find new patterns. Personally, I think that artificial intelligence implementations in Power BI and in data analysis in general are mostly happening in the explore section. So you're exploring new patterns, exploring new insights based on the data that you already have, in hope to enrich it and find new insights. When we look at reporting in the past, it was mainly statical, paginated, and textual, like you see on our reporting services on the right-hand side. But if you look at reporting today, what we're doing with Power BI, we're more working with intuitive reporting. So we're having a clear navigation, consistency across pages, interactive experience with cross-filtering, cross-highlighting. And we're having the ability to go from a very high level to a detailed level by zooming in and out, drill through, drill down, etc. That's what we all know, love, and do with Power BI. But this all is still business intelligence or data analytics, but why not take it one step further and have a look at artificial intelligence, how we can implement artificial intelligence in Power BI. That brings me to the next topic. What does Power BI offer with artificial intelligence? Back in 2015, Power BI started to exist and it was separated from SharePoint. This is also the moment when I started my career, and when I finished my bachelor education, and I started working with Power BI. And I always tell, when Power BI turned from green to yellow, so when it was separated from SharePoint and become a product, I started working with Power BI. This was back in 2015, and back then they already started implementing the first advanced features in Power BI, which you can relate somehow to artificial intelligence. The very first thing they implemented was running R scripts to build visuals in Power BI. Then it took them a year, and in 2016 we were able to also run R scripts in Power Query in order to transform our data. Still, I truly doubt if you should do data transformation with R inside Power Query. I think there are better tools to do this and better places to do this. like we've seen in the introduction with, for example, Jupyter Notebooks or Databricks or whatever you prefer yourself. But it is possible, and it can definitely help you to enrich your experience in Power BI. In 2018, they implemented the same two things, but then based on Python. So you were able to run Python code to generate visuals in order to transform data in Power Query. In 2019, they launched a lot of premium features, which were the AI insights, which we'll see in a second, which are driving the cognitive services like key influence or like key phrase extraction, language detection, and many things like this. They launched the visual, which is the key influencer visual, Azure automated machine learning, which allows you to run machine learning in Power BI, as well as the ability to integrate Machine Learning Studio. So if you build your own machine learning models in Machine Learning Studio, in Azure Machine Learning Studio, you are able to trigger them and benefit from them in Power BI. With that, I mentioned already a few of these things are related to Power BI Premium. I will mention them all when it is Premium related. And of course, no, Premium is not only the high price anymore. You now also have Premium per user, which makes it affordable for you and me to just trial and error with these premium features and just play around with it a little bit. If your organization allows you to do it, you can enable a free trial for, I believe, 60 days or so. So you can at least start playing around with it. Let's have a look. What typical AI functionalities does Power BI offer and who can benefit from this? All the way to the left-hand side, we have the end users. The end users that are consuming our reports, and they can benefit from things like natural language query, which we know as, I will demo it in a second, where you can just type in your question in your native language and let Power BI answer this based on your data. Other than that, functionalities like automated insights, which relates to capabilities like quick insights in Power BI or AI visualizations. This is available typical for end users. We look at the analysts, they can use AI enrichments, which are related to those cognitive services in Azure, where you can think about sentiment analysis, key phrase extraction, or image detection. So based on the image, we can see what is on this image. Is there a cat on this image, or is it a dog, or anything else? If we look at the BI professional, they will probably look at predictions and classification, which you can do with automated machine learning and other enrichments that you can run in Power BI in your query editor or in data flows. Of course, the extents for data scientists can be to run their own code with R and Python. And all the way to the right, we have capabilities like automated machine learning, as well as the one that's not on the screen actually, Machine Learning Studio that can be triggered by data scientists to work with Power BI combined with AI. So what is the goal that we're actually achieving with making AI available for everyone? Well, the first group of persons that we identified, a group of users, is to help business users to understand their data better. And they will use these typical functionalities like Q&A, quick insights, key drivers, and clustering. We look at the analysts to help prepare their data. You can look at forecasting, cognitive services, automated machine learning, and R integration. And I put R already at the analyst here, while I put Python for the data scientist. Because I think personally that R is still a little bit better known and also educated in high schools, etc., and some of them at least, while Python is still coming up, but definitely overtaking it. So if we look at making it easy for data scientists and analysts to collaborate with Power BI combined with machine learning and custom development of machine learning models and prediction models, it will definitely be the Python and Azure machine learning integrations. So, and I think enough the stuff that I explained to you, the context around artificial intelligence in Power BI. Let's run into the demos. And because life is boring without risks, I prepared a bunch of them. So first of all, we will look at the natural language query capabilities of Power BI, and I will explain you how this thing is working. Then we will have a look at explain increase and explain decrease, a very well hidden feature in Power BI. Same word goes for analyze distribution. And of course, we will build up a little bit in complexity. So we will look at the key influence of visual, decomposition tree, and the AI insights. And finally, if we have some time left, we can also look at the smart narratives visual, which is the last one that was added, I think somewhere last year. But for that one, I didn't prepare a demo, so that will be a little bit trial and error. But I will make sure that that will run through it smoothly. So let's have a look at natural language query capabilities. And with that, I will open my very first demo, which is obviously on my other screen, as always happens. So there we go. I will use a lot of different demo files for this, but here we have a report file that's about Hawaii tourism analysis. So based on the different islands of Hawaii, we can analyze the tourism and their spendings per trip and many more things. So some context around this data set. And in the past, when they first implemented this Q&A functionality or this natural language query capability, it was very well hidden because the only way how you could trigger it was by clicking a button. And let's just do that. And what happened was you received a pop-up window, which was something like this. In the beginning, it looked slightly different, but you were able as an end user to start typing your questions. So let's start with the very first question where I just type, show me the visits by country, because for me, as just a random guy that's looking at this data set, I have no clue that this is only about islands. So I just type visit by country. But fancy enough, you see that this tool is now showing me that it did recognize the word visits, which is highlighted in blue or underlined in blue, but it doesn't understand what a country is. So that is underlined in red. The only thing that is showing on my screen right now is the total amount of visits, which is something around 28 million or almost 25 million. So it is actually not what I'm looking for. And a lot of people stopped using this functionality here because it didn't do what they expected. Well, today they made this functionality a lot more accessible, and let me create a new report page to explain you how this thing works. Either you can create it by clicking, finding this functionality in the insert menu where you can add the natural language query or Q&A visual, or just double click on your screen and you will see that it's preparing my Q&A visualization. It looks almost similar, but as you can see, it just brings a little bit more to the screen, which are things like suggested question, and I can type the same question here and come to the same answer that I was not looking for actually, but let's see what it's gonna do. So visits, so far still working. We still have that 28 or 24 million. I'm just typing visits by country, but still not doing what I expected. And it's also telling me it's only showing the results for visits, but I have this little gear icon here. And for me as a report author, so as an owner of this report, I can go into this menu, and once it's opening, it will show me the way to tweak this model and learn how Power BI can learn from the questions that were asked to this model. So let's go to the Teach Q&A functionality first before I explain you all the others. You still see my question here, which was visits by country, and you see that it's still showing me the same result. But here I can define what a country actually is. So as I'm the report author, I probably know that a visit in this case relates to an island because this data set is about islands, or a country relates to an island. So I can add a synonym to my data set and tell my data set if someone asks for a country, he's probably referring to an island. So and when I just hit save, and you can see here that it's showing something much more reasonable right now. At the same time, I can go to manage terms where you can now see actually the term that I just added. So it was modified today, like a few seconds ago. Same goes for suggested questions. So the blue ones that you just saw when I created this visual, you can add suggested questions to inspire your end users with what typical type of questions they can ask to your data set in their natural language. Finally, you also have a review questions functionality. So if you're signed into your Power BI service, like I am right now, and you already published this model, and a little side note, your tenant administrator allows you to do this, because they can switch it off on tenant settings. You can see all the questions that were asked by your end users and learn from that. So you can see what questions were not correctly answered by Power BI and fix them by adding the synonyms and make sure that this question will be successfully answered next time.
So Mark, how was it that you saw the questions that were asked that didn't get answered again?
And that is if you go to review questions here, but it only works, as you can see here, I'm now signed in. So now it is empty because I didn't publish this data set as I'm in Power BI Desktop. I can also click here and choose different data sets. So if it lives in a different workspace, for example, I can select the data set that this refers to. And in this menu, you will see each question that was asked, you will see it showing up. And then with the blue or red underlined, what went well and what it couldn't answer.
Mark, does it do any kind of grouping for questions that are similar but might be a little bit different? Or is it just a list of here's all the questions that were asked? Okay.
It's at this moment just a list, but you can filter on give me all of them or the ones that it didn't answer correctly. So where it was red underlined and it needs to be fixed. That's the only option that you have today. But I think it's a really nice idea. So if that is not on ideas.powerbi.com, I would encourage you to submit it there and let me know, because I will vote for it and also pass it forward to the PM. As I just told you in the introduction, AI doesn't do something before we tell it what to do. So we just teach the AI that a country actually relates to an island. But let's have a look at our data model and what it actually did. So if we go to this data model, if it stops doing this, yes. So if we go to our data model and we have our star schema here, or something that looks like a star schema, here we have the islands table. And as you can see, if I just click on this table, on the right-hand side, we have a synonyms field. And in the synonyms field, it now filled in country. Previously, this was not there. So if I remove country again from the synonyms field here, my Q&A visual will not work anymore. It will just go back to the previous state where it didn't know what a country was. As we're knowing this, that the teach Q&A is just filling in the terms in the synonyms field, we can easily add more here, like the word island. You just write it slightly different in Dutch. And I can just add that comma separated in this list. So while it is working on it, it's saving it. If I go back here and I now just type in visits by island with the Dutch word for island, I'll get the very same result. So in this way, I can easily tweak how my Q&A functionality is responding to specific terms that were entered by the end user. And I think this will definitely improve the usability of the Q&A functionality, especially with specific terms in specific businesses, and in particular in the medical data sets with very specific words. Other than that, there's one more thing that relates here that I'm not going to explain you in detail, but if there are very specific words in the modeling section in Power BI, you will also find the linguistic schema. And linguistic schema is something you can export and import, and you will also be referred here to the documentation about the linguistic schema. But that will help you to define specific nouns or specific words that are related to your data set. So if you have a medical term, which is, for example, Greek or whatever language, or Latin or whatever language they use, Power BI has no clue what it is. So with the linguistic schema, you can easily tweak these things to make it respond better. But these are the real expert stuff, which is also a YAML file. So you need to have an editor like Visual Studio Code or something else to edit this in a decent way. I think for the majority of data sets with the teach Q&A functionality in the synonyms, you will be benefiting from a much better experience already.
Yeah.
Mark, before we move on from Q&A, I'd love to ask one question. Thinking about it, like you said, you came to this data set as someone who really, if you weren't the data set editor and you asked the question, where, I guess, just from your experiences and other places, have you seen people make Q&A more trustworthy? It's easy. So for a simple example in a different kind of business, Most people understand what gross sales means, but net sales can have a
Mm.
different definition. So if I type in net sales by customer, how how can I give them the confidence that net sales means what they think it means, it excludes what they think it excludes, and includes what they think it does? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on how you bring your report or your data set to your end user. And why I'm telling that is if your end user has access to the fields pane on the right-hand side, in the case that they have this and they hover over a field here, now you only see the name. But what you can do also in the model view or with third-party tools like Tabular Editor, you can also add not only a synonym, but also a description to a field, which can be a functional description. Of course, this does not help you if they don't have access to the fields pane, because let's say I'm using island name here. So let's type here the name of an island, which doesn't make any sense, but for now I can live with it. So if I go back to my report view here and I hover over this item, you can see that the description is available to them as well.
Mm-hmm. So you could add something similar to visits to say, here's what a visit means. Does it mean like a booked plane ticket, or does it mean, oh, they came, or how specifically do I define a visit? Okay,
Yeah,
great, thank you.
Here's the formula that I'm using for gross sales, or here's the formula that I'm using for net sales. And
but yeah, as Jeremy explains, you can also do it with the formula. I know that Reed Havens, another MVP that lives in Seattle, he also has a YouTube channel, Havens BI. He built a script that you can run in Tabular Editor to automatically fill all the description fields with your DAX expression. Though I get his use case, at the same time, I think how many end users will understand DAX?
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, when I say formula, I'm thinking more of a business-friendly kind of pseudocode formula, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, his use case was slightly different, because if you disconnect your data set from your report in separate PBIX files, that was his use case to put this DAX formula in the description field, so that in his report he could easily hover over a measure to see the formula behind it.
Yeah,
but you could expand on that to do both. Have here's the business definition, here's the technical, formula.
Yep, absolutely. And I really love this Q&A feature. The way that I kind of frame this for my business users is whenever we get your model set up correctly, you can use this as like a form of Google My Business, right? I mean, if I've got a question about what's going on with my business, I could literally come in here to a search bar and look up what are my net sales for customer X, without having to go to a report, right? This really enables the kind of self-service type analytics that is, this is like the panacea of self-service analytics, which is how do I ask questions and get answers on the fly from the data. So this is an awesome feature.
You can even take it one step further if you like. You can, if you open a Power BI report that has this feature enabled on a mobile phone, so on a Power BI mobile, you can even trigger it with, I think with Cortana, even on your Windows device, but also with Siri on an iPhone. And you can directly ask questions or refer to a report. And in the application, you can use Siri to answer questions based on your data.
Natural language, just asking a question. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, very cool.
Exactly. And the mobile phone even has this conversation capability where you can build up in your question. So it will keep the context from your previous question and continuously adding context. So for example, when I started with visits by island, my next question could be, and what is it about for the visits in summer? So it will keep the context that it's about visits, because I didn't mention that in my second question. So it will build up in context and will remember what I asked before. But before we cover the entire time on Q&A, I would like to run through the other ones as well. So the next one that I prepared is the explain increase and explain decrease. Here I will use the very same Power BI report. So no further explanation on the context of this data set. But this feature is one of the best hidden features from Power BI, if you ask me. Although I also have some criticism on this feature, as it is not always showing you something very useful. So on the bottom visual here, we have the spendings per trip, and it's a line that is the spendings from a specific country, so probably the country of origin where my visitors are from, and how much money they spent when they were on a trip to this Hawaii island. Okay. When I do a right click here on one of these lines, there is a functionality that is called Analyze. And as I'm doing a right click on a line trending upwards, I will see Explain Inquiries. If I do the very same thing on a line trending downwards, not clicking there, on a line trending downwards. So for example, here, I will get an option to explain, again, inquiries. So I probably click slightly next to it, but then I will get an option Explain Degrees. So let me show you what this thing is doing. You might be familiar with the Quick Insights feature that you get in the Power BI service, or even if you you can even run that when you just publish a Power BI report. It will ask you, do you want to have a look at the Quick Insights? To be honest, I don't like that feature a lot, as it is also showing very irrelevant results. Things like your index value is trending upwards during while the year is going on. It's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, because there are more lines of data in my data set. So those typical kind of insights are not very useful. So my personal preference would be to improve this feature with columns that you can exclude from this feature.
Yeah.
This functionality, Explain Inquiries and Explain Degrees, is using the very same thing on the backend. So as I was clicking on a line, and here it explains me, here's the analysis of 30.2% increase of spendings per trip between, well, this is Dutch, Wednesday, February 1st in 2017 for country other, and Wednesday, 1st of March 2017. So it explains me the context of where I clicked this line. And then it shows me the spendings per trip and the visitor arrivals are separated like this on these 2 dates. So you can see that this greenish dot, which is around $1,500 here in February 1st, is actually slightly higher in around $1,900 on the 1st of March. So what is this showing me? That per island, because these are the island names, what the difference is between the 2 dates. In this case, it just used 2 dots. But of course, you can also add this visual to your report canvas. So if I just click this little plus icon here, because I might not like this visual that much, so I can click this little plus icon, and with that, it will be added as any other native visual to my report canvas, and I can further customize it. Other than that, you also see a little thumbs up and a thumbs down icon here, where I can kind of help to improve this feature and tell Power BI if this was something useful for me or not. So let's just say, okay, this was good. Let's give it a thumbs up. If I just click next to it, I just added this new visual here. And let's make a little bit more room for it. So you can actually see what it's doing. It's always fun when you share your screen that the rest of your computer slows down.
Yep.
So here we have this visual, which is just another native visual that we completely can customize in the way we like. I can swap specific fields or that I'm using here, or I can do anything I like with this visual. So personally, I think this is a very nice way to get inspired with potential new insights and patterns. And I, in particular, use the word inspired here, as I truly believe that it always needs some customization. So you can get inspired, add it to your canvas, and then add some of your own interpretation to it. This is very much alike with what I wanted to show you with the next functionality that Power BI has, and is also very well hidden, which is the Analyze distribution. Here I will use a slightly different data set, which is again on my other screen. You always prepare these things, and for some reason they swap to your other screen. So here we have another data set, which is the number of new customers that we have as a company, and what is their primary interest based on why they are coming to our organization to buy their stuff. Whatever we sell, I don't know, fancy data set. So here we have the count of customers by interest. So I see a lot of different things. So majority of my users come to us because we probably offer a good price, or the speed of our delivery, or specific features we offer. But well, this is in general how it looks. But in fact, I might be interesting to find patterns that relate to something specific that can be found in my data set. For example, the role, is the consumer, a publisher, or an administrator, or is it something related to countries or regions? So what I can do is I can again do a right click here, and I have the analyze option, which shows me something like find where the distribution is different. When I'm clicking this, I will get a same kind of pop-up window, which shows me first the context. Here are the filters that cause the distribution of count by customer ID. So we're counting customers here, by theme to change the most. This is a nice bug. As you can see, it kind of splits over all my window here, but still it is working, luckily. So we still have those thumbs up and thumbs down icons all the way to the right, and a little plus icon. But for some reason, this is happening. So I cannot see these buttons here, but they are there. So what you can see here, for example, here we have a nice feature that shows me, let me try to zoom in a little bit. Obviously, it doesn't fit right on the screen. So what it shows me here is the count of customers for France and the count of customer ID in total. So remember that in total, the most important thing was that we offer a good price. But for people in France, the speed of delivery is probably much more interesting. And it also shows us two other countries which are having an interesting distribution, which is Germany. So once I click Germany and the visual is rendered, I can see that the price is super important, but the speed of delivery, not at all. So if we deliver our products to Germany, it can take months as long as we offer them a good price. And overall, you can see that security is more important for Germany than all the other features, which kind of makes sense why Microsoft built a specific data center in Germany for German customers, but completely different topic. And we also have the UK. So here in UK, you can see that price or features are not that much separating from each other. So they're kind of the same. Also, speed is not that important, but price, features, and reliability and service are super important for people in the UK. I think this is, again, a super cool feature that helps you to better understand your data set and get inspired with potential patterns that are in your data set. Because at first, if we just look at the overall count, it doesn't look that interesting. It looks pretty obvious that price is an important factor, but in fact, it is mainly triggered by one country, where it is super important, and for the others, a little bit less. So this is what the analyze distribution functionality is doing. Again, hidden behind the right click. Then we have, and as I told you in the beginning, we build up a little bit in complexity. So then we have the key influencer visualization. You might have seen this thing before. Microsoft demoed it a lot. So in this key influencer visual, we use a slightly different data set again, which is about our guest analytics. So we host a hotel, or we host something, it doesn't matter. We host something, and we have people visiting us from all over the place. And as we are hosting our hotel, we want to know, why are our customers returning to us, or why are they not returning? So do they come and visit us for a second time? This entire thing that I have here is one visual. So the key influencer visual is actually multiple visuals in one, if you ask me. So what influences our customers to be returning? But let's have a look here on the right-hand side, what we actually defined to be the fields in our visual. In fact, we wanted to analyze something about our customers, and we had no clue what we were looking for. So the only thing we did is we just dropped in some fields, like what potentially the primary interest influences it, or the country that they're from, or maybe they visited the spa, so did they purchase a spa visit, or their type of reservation. I don't know what I'm looking for, just Power BI helped me to find the patterns. So what this visual returns me is what influences my customers the most to be returning. Well, it is more likely that they're returning if they're from the UK, because it's 2.3 times more customers from the UK are returning comparing to other countries. Same goes for Japan, which is 1.8 times, and 1.6 times for if they purchase a spa visit, for example. As you can see, it is fully interactive. So once I click one of these dots, it will show me the split in the different answers here on the right-hand side. So again, first two we had was UK and Japan, and we can actually see that indeed Japan and UK are having slightly more customers returning than the other countries. Well, interestingly enough, let's have a look at why are they not returning, because maybe we're more interested why they're not, so we can find room for improvement for our business, for a hotel, instead of looking why they are actually coming back to us. Well, if they didn't visit the spa, they are not returning. As you can see, the split is not that big, so well, okay, maybe this is not that interested to us. But this can be a trigger to offer a discount code, for example, when people are arriving at our hotel for the very first time. So we offer them a 20% discount on the spa. So we have a little bit more. They're a little bit more likely to return to us. The obvious one, if their primary interest is honeymoon, well, I hope if it is their honeymoon that they're never returning with the same reason. Otherwise, they might be divorced and getting back with a new honeymoon. But as you can see, again, the split is not that big. As you can see on the bottom, it's currently sorted by impact, but we can also sort it by counts, because it is the impact that is defining it, but maybe it is based on 2 or 3 records. So it is also interesting to look at the count of customers that are returning. So if the reservation type is couple, they're a little bit more likely to not return for some reason. Or if they're family or single, for example. You can also see the split here. Again, the thumbs up and thumbs down on the right top, that will help us to rank if this was relevant for us or not. And here we have a segmentation functionality that's also included in this visual. So Power BI has segmented 5 different segments in my data set. And if I click one of them, I can see that my second segment in this data set is defined as their primary interest is not relaxation, they're not on honeymoon, they didn't visit the spa, and they're also not single. So looking at this, like with segment 1, they are on honeymoon, they did not visit the spa, but they are also not single, which is kind of obvious if they're on honeymoon. But at least you can get some segmentation from your data and understand a little bit better what's doing. If you click on the learn more about this segment, you will see the same quick insights functionalities popping up that is trying to find more patterns in your data set with similar results that we've just seen with the explain increase, explain decrease, or with defined distribution. So you can get a little bit more inspired again. I think overall, a nice visual that can definitely be used for inspiration in your data set and for the more explorative reports, but for an report where you're really analyzing why something happened, so the describing or declaring reports, I doubt how many users will really benefit by this visual, but as a report author, you can again get inspired by it to build those visuals that declare why something happened.
I think that that's a great point, Mark. I was really excited when this visual came out, but I found that for most of the end users that I tried to present this to, they just left feeling confused about it. And to be honest with you, there are some aspects that are still a little bit unclear to me. So like if we are just on this view that you have up right here, right? Mm-hmm. When we're looking at the key influencers and it says country is UK, and that's the impact. So is that saying that, you know, your customer is more likely to the likelihood of them returning increases by 2.32 times? What does that mean? Are we saying they're 232% more likely than the average person to return if they're from the UK?
That is how I should interpret it. But I know that in the official documentation behind this visual, there are some explanation of the algorithms that are running behind this visual.
Mhm.
That probably will get you a better explanation than I can give you at this point.
Okay.
When this visual was launched, I had a call with the program manager behind it to explain me a little bit what this thing was actually doing,
Mhm.
because I kind of had the same feeling. Looking at it, I was like, yeah, okay. So probably I should do something with countries here, because the first two are showing me countries,
Mhm.
but I have no good feeling yet on where this is based on. What is it actually telling me?
Right.
And I know that they're running a specific algorithm, which is very well known, but honestly, I cannot come up with a name right now. But I know that in the documentation of this visual, they mentioned his name.
Okay, gotcha. So just, the way that we understand that 2.32x, how do you understand what that's telling us about people coming from the UK? Their likelihood of returning increases by 232% if they're from the UK, or
I would interpret it as people from the UK are returning 2.3 times more than someone from a different country.
gotcha. Okay.
So it's not necessarily against the average, it's just all others, maybe, versus all others.
Yeah, but again, if we quickly go back to the data set.
The average of all the others. Okay, I see. Right, excluding the selected asset. Okay.
Yeah, because if we look at this split that we had, so we had people returning, and then we had UK and Japan on top. So if you look at this, so customers are more likely to return when the country is UK than others on average. So I think it takes the average of all other countries, and then UK is 2.3 times more, which kind of makes sense if you look at that there are pretty low numbers here, and UK and Japan are pretty high. So Japan drives up this average while the others are taking it down. And this is close to 30%, or it's 28 dot something. Well, this here is only 8, so something around 8. So probably the average is, well, let's say 10, 11, maybe even a little bit less. And then it would make sense it is 2.3 times more if they're from the UK.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's how I would read it.
I like your recommendation, though, just as a report author, using this visual to get inspiration for some other visualizations that you might use for your end users. I think that's good advice.
Yep. As you said, and you mentioned yourself, I think typical end users will have a hard time interpreting this visual. As you can already see that we can talk about it, but both have a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, use it as inspiration. And if you think that Microsoft can do better, then definitely provide them the impact or the feedback. I know that they appreciate that. So. What else do we have? Decomposition tree. And funny enough, I broke this demo this morning, so I will demo this live based on the very same data set. What I will do is I will just copy this visual to a new page. And we're going to use the decomposition tree, which is a visual that kind of knows it, or kind of uses the same setup. It's a visual that we have in Power BI natively. So what we can do here is tell Power BI what we want to analyze, which is typically the count of customers probably. Yep. And we want to explain that by we don't know. So we want to know how many customers are and explain it by primary interest, country, purchase path, or relaxation type. This visual in itself is pretty empty. So our total count of customers is 45,000. And what we can do is we click this little plus icon here. We can ask Power BI, what is my biggest split that we know based on the 4 other fields that are dropped in. I can also do that with lowest split, or I can ask or specify, like, I first want to split by this specific field. But let's have a look at the highest value first. And what will happen in a second is it is rendering right now. It is investigating these fields in my data set, and will show me that the biggest split here is in type of reservation, where 27,000 of my customers are a couple, where only 12,000 are single and 5,000 are family. So again, let's do another time the highest split. So split it by the highest value. And what we will see now is then the next biggest split that we have here is if they purchase the spa visit, yes or no, which is 14,000 and 12,000. But let's have a look at what this split, the biggest split, is for single. So this visual is still fully interactive. So if I click on single, you can see that this one is still showing this purchase spa visits. But if I click on family, you can see that their primary interest is their second biggest split. So it is reinvestigating the biggest split on the fly. So for family, it is the sports activities, which is their primary interest, which shows the biggest split, and probably after that, some other influencer. Clicking this little icon here is showing that it is recommended high value isn't currently selected. What I can also do if I get rid of these two, for example, I can also force this visual to always split first by country. So if I just tell them like, hey, split it by country, and then I want to benefit from the highest, lowest split, etc. I can lock this column here. So there's a little lock icon, and I can tell it always first split it by country, and then you can do whatever you want. So as a report author, I can lock it, and now it's up to my end user to investigate the different splits that are still there, or go for the lowest value, for example. So for Australia, what is the lowest split that we have? Which is again then pointing down to the lowest one, and showing me that relaxation is the lowest value. Well, if I would have asked for the highest value, I might have come up with a different result. This is typically what the key influencer visual is doing, the decomposition tree is doing, to show you the different splits over your data. And as you can see, if it doesn't fit on the screen, you can always go down here to scroll to all the others. You can just use this little icon here, or you can also, I believe you can also scroll in the Power BI service, but I'm not 100% sure about that. And it is showing you some nice bar chart at the same time. So it is showing you the split in a visual way, instead of that you have to read all those numbers. Because in fact, I can directly see that this one is the biggest, and this is the slowest one without even reading it. So I think it's a pretty interesting visual. And this is one that I actually use to show my end users, as it is very well understandable what is happening here. And I think it would make sense for them if they look at this, that they know what they are looking at.
Mark, just out of curiosity there, when you're picking high value or low value, like it looks to me like the only difference between the two is, I guess it's just sort of dotting in the line for you. You're just telling it which one do I want you to highlight. Is it doing anything else, or is that how it chose the primary interest field?
Well, I think it is not really just showing you the top or the bottom one, because let's go for the highest value here. And it might come up with the biggest split is, for example, a reservation type instead of the primary interest. So it is looking at, out of all those categories that I have left, what is the highest or the lowest?
Okay. Yeah. So I see what you mean. Yeah. And there is a little training there just to tell them which is which. But, I think once they understand that, you could put it in a text box up at the top, click it if you want to see the highest variance or the lowest variance, if that's kind of what it's saying. But yeah, that's really great. I agree. Exactly. They can understand this.
Yeah, you can use a text box or a tooltip, because this visual also supports tooltips, by the way, which is super cool, I believe, because you can build your own custom tooltips and still let them interact with this visual.
Yeah, I love this decomp tree, and it's very powerful whenever you start pulling in your other visualizations and getting the cross highlighting or cross filtering going on, to look at some of the other stuff that you got going on there.
Exactly. I think a very cool visual that you can actually use for your end users.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, let's introduce you to another topic, which is the cognitive services. And cognitive services is an Azure functionality. You can run Azure Cognitive Services, which is a separate offering. And cognitive services allow you to do things with vision, speech, language, knowledge, and search. For example, if you have terms in your data set, you can run them through the Cognitive Services Search API, and it will return you the Bing search results. I doubt how useful that will be, as I'm not a big fan of Bing, as you might know by now. But still, today I had an interesting use case from an IT support department. They received their feedback on how well they were helped by IT support, but it's a multinational company, so the responding people to those surveys are typing in all different languages, in Portuguese, in Spanish, in English, in Dutch, everything. So we used the Cognitive Services Translation API in order to translate everything that we have into English, so that the help desk support people know, and the help desk manager knows what they actually typed in this survey, instead of running everything to Google Translate. So with this, you can use this to translate your data, detect which language it is, or many other things. Looking at that, I think that here we start talking about the Power BI premium functionalities, where you can do things like binary prediction, general classification, that you can all run from the Power BI service. As you can see here, I'm not going to live demo this part, but you can at least see what it's doing and what the interface is like, and how easy it is for a more mature Power BI developer to run these specific analytics. You can do this in a data flow in the Power BI service. What I will demo live, or at least show you how I created it, is the Cognitive Services implementation that I did, what we also call AI Insights, based on Airbnb data. So what I did, all the way to the beginning of this presentation, I showed you where I traveled to in 2019, where we are still allowed to travel to conferences, etc. What happened back then is every now and then I stayed in a hotel, but if I decided to stay a few more nights because I went to a new city that I never visited before, I usually also looked at Airbnb, because I don't want to stay in some fancy expensive hotel in the city center or just close to the airport because it was useful. I wanted to stay in a nice place where I can easily visit the nice touristic attractions, etc. So I used Airbnb to look up a few places that might be interesting to me, but at the same time I had a challenge with different languages in the reviews. Of course, Airbnb is already showing me a star rating, but I thought, let's build my own, because I don't trust the star rating from Airbnb. So what I did, I used three different cognitive services that are part of the Power BI Premium offering, which are language detection, key phrase extraction, and sentiment scoring. So based on the full review text that was on Airbnb, I managed to extract which language it is based on these cognitive services, extract where this text actually is about. So if it is a long review text, it will extract me just a few keywords where it is about, and the sentiment score, so how positive or how negative this review was. And based on this information, I was able to create my own star rating. So what I did, here I'm showing you an example of Stockholm, but the demo I will use in a second is based on Manchester. I just picked three random places in the city center of Manchester in my example. And I extracted this data, and with the web extractor in Power BI Desktop, you can easily scrape data from Airbnb. By just using the table from examples, you type in a few examples and it will take over all the different elements from this website. And what I did in following up of that, and that I will just demo you, is building a nice report, which includes all the different elements. So on the bottom here, I have all cards that are capturing all the reviews that I imported. And I have the three different places that I analyzed here on the left-hand side, which are all getting a 4-star rating in this case. And on the right-hand side, I built a visual that shows me the flag of the language of this particular review. In this case, it's showing me Dutch and UK, so I will manage to understand both of them. But I also did the very same thing with Stockholm and with Paris. And I can tell you, I don't speak a single word French. I can hardly order a beer there, which is probably the most important thing, but it was super useful for me to start analyzing it this way, because I had no clue what these reviews were saying. So let's have a look. I also use this word map or word cloud to show me the most important words based on the key phrase extraction that are returning in all these different reviews. So the word location is ranked in sentiment. In total, the sum of the sentiment score with the word location in it was 5.79, where the word place, for example, was 4.9. So probably location is a big influencer for something to be ranked positive. Well, if I just click it, I can see that the location is probably not interesting at all for this first location, because there the word location never existed in the reviews. Here we have a review, for example, that just shows me perfect location. That's all. Here we had Rachel stating a very good sized flat in the central location, easy communication, check in, check out. Thanks, Mark. Probably I was the host. Well, my name is with a C, but okay. But at least this helped me to find a place that fit what I think is important based on what type of visit I did. Was I just flying in, do my presentation, going back? Or was I willing to stay there a little bit longer? So if I was just flying in and out, then I might wanted to, I think I wouldn't add that much value to a quiet place, but more that it's close to a train station or the airport or anything. So let's see what, for example, what could also be interesting is, let's have a look at the word city. So it is probably in the city, and they all get, again, this one doesn't get any rating, but here the word city is only mentioned 4 times, but overall the word gets a 3.45 rating. So that's pretty high based on only 4 reviews. So in this case, this tells me that the word city has a very big influence on these scores. So I can read along in these reviews, and based on this, I was able to identify what is for me the best place to stay. Show you a little bit on what this data set actually looks like. The key phrase extraction and all the other elements here that just add data to my data set. So in this case, the only thing that I had was just a table with the URL from Airbnb. Then I had a table with the reviews that I extracted. And as you can see, this is just a subset of it. But then I first used the, I can zoom in a little bit here. I first used the detect language to return me a language code, the ISO code. And based on that, I was able to do the key phrase extraction, because key phrase extraction requires 2 input parameters. One is which language is it? And second one is the text field that it needs to analyze. So that's the full review text. And that will return me, well, the score sentiment, which is the column just next to it. So as you can see, some are super positive as they are scoring a 1, and some are less positive, as the lowest one that I quickly see is showing me a 0.47, which is not that positive. So let me quickly look at what is super positive. Here we have someone that says a very good size flat in central location, easy communication, check in and check out. Well, it's actually the same one as I just had, funny enough. But the lowest score is showing me this: good location, easy check-in, and I slept fine. However, I probably wouldn't stay here again, since there were a few things about the place that were not ideal. Said it includes pots and pans, but couldn't find any. The balcony doesn't lock. The living room window is broken. So what is this key phrase extraction and this score sentiment actually doing? It is looking at specific words in your text. So it is looking at, in this case, for example, the word however, to be ranked a little bit more negative. On the other side, it is not super negative, so it is not close to 0, as it also has the words good and easy and fine in it. So it just tries to find specific words which are all getting a rating, and based on these words, it defines the total rating. It takes the average of it. This is what the sentiment scoring is doing on the back end. It just takes your text and tries to find words that are positive or negative. Because let's just take another one example. We have, well, the bottom one, which is scoring a 0.66. The apartment has lots of place and it's a great location. It has not a luxurious as the photos implies. It is missing a bit of love and it's a bit grubby in some parts. Well, the words missing without completing the full sentence, but it has the word missing in it. It has not, so the word not in it. So it is again finding specific words which are ranked negative. So the obvious question that you're probably going to ask, how can I train this model? You cannot. The score between 0 and 1 is something that is maintained in the Cognitive Services API managed by Microsoft. If you really want to build a model that you can score yourself, you have to build your own machine learning or key phrase extraction or thing in Azure Machine Learning. But I do believe that this key phrase extraction and sentiment scoring are super cool features that definitely help you to inspire your users and enrich their experience with Power BI and enrich their data set with translating quantitative data into qualitative data, which is actually measurable. Although some things might not be 100% correct or are actually a little bit more positive than they are shown here, or more negative, who knows? I think it definitely adds value to your data set.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe like a business use case for this would be people analytics at your organization. You know, if you wanted to feed in all of your emails from your Exchange server, and you can, as an HR person, start, and maybe this is a little bit Big Brother, right? But you could feed in all of the emails from your Exchange server and start to see, okay, emails being sent by this person are a little bit more negative as opposed to this person. You know, should we see what we can do to make this individual more happy in their position? You know, just kind of an early detection system for folks who might possibly want to leave or something like that. That's just one business use case I could think of for this this sentiment scoring.
I don't know how GDPR works in the United States, to be honest, but in Europe you would be you would get a hard time with analyzing emails, I think. But another use case could be if you have those public websites. You might know Indeed.com, where you have job offerings, etc.
Yeah.
What you can do is compare the job offerings and the reviews of your own company with the ones of your biggest competitor.
Mm.
And especially those reviews, because there you have people on Indeed.com, you have people complaining about your company, which are your previous employers, that might influence new people joining. This is an actual use case that I've done, actually.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Another good one.
But definitely it will help you to get this going. And this is a premium setup that I use here, because then you simply click a few buttons. What I can also show you very quickly is, if you don't have the perks of having Power BI Premium, what you can do is you go to my website, Cognitive Services. I will drop the link in the chat in a second. I wrote a blog post on how you can run the same thing without having premium. You can just trial and error with this, because the way how I describe it, you can use a free Azure offering, which allows you to run 5,000 transactions to the Cognitive Services API without paying a single euro or dollar for it. So I think if you want to try to play around a little bit with this, definitely try it. So you can do the same things here, and then I describe the full setup, which steps you need to take, how it works, and how you can just play around with it. And I also provide you the Power Query code to implement it in Power BI. So I think that will help. I only have to look where the chat is. Here it is.
Wow, thank you, Mark. This is awesome. Yeah, you have a lot of great content on your site here.
Well, this one I also have to give credits to my co-author here, which is Catherine, is a lady from Germany. She reached out to me if I thought it was a good approach. I thought, yeah, why not? So let's write a blog post on it. So definitely she deserves the credits as well. Other than that, I think I had only one slide left, which is a short recap. And of course, I'm still here for questions and everything, but let's first do a short recap. If we're looking at artificial intelligence, I truly believe that artificial intelligence is more than only business intelligence. It can help you to inspire and to learn more from your data and add value to your data. Although AI is not innovation, everything that AI is doing, we could have done it ourselves as well, but it's just helping us to speed up processes and inspire us with things that we might not have thought of at that specific moment. So it will definitely help us to get inspired, optimize things, to do it faster, or and also to help us to detect patterns like we've seen with the analyzed distribution and the key influencer visual. I truly believe that artificial intelligence is at your fingertips with Power BI, as you see a lot of implementations of this already, where you can just play around with it very quickly with a lot of non-premium offerings. And the last demo that I showed you, you can take the next level with it already by using the AI insights functionalities, which are Power BI premium related. And some of them, you can also run them based on the cognitive service API described in the link that I just dropped in the chat. With that, I have one final slide and then I'm here for questions. A long time ago already, I have to be honest, it's a little bit outdated, but most of the content is still relevant. You can download the Power BI cheat sheet, which I conducted together with my colleague Dave. We have a lot of tips and tricks on that related to working with Power BI in 4 different categories. You can download that for free with a link, as you can see on top. Other than that, feel free to reach out to me on any of the social channels mentioned on the screen. Connect with me on LinkedIn, find me on Twitter. Happy to connect. Is there any questions? Here to ask them or to answer them. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. And yeah, so Mark's able to stick around for a few questions. So yeah, if I know some of us, if you just booked out on your calendar to go until 1 p.m. Central, then you know that's fine. But if you have a question, please feel free to chime in. All right, mostly I'm seeing thank yous here in the chat, Mark. So, and I know that we weren't shy to kind of stop you. I'm glad that you moved us on from Q&A, because I'm sure we could have spent the whole time there.
Yeah.
No, this is really obviously very valuable, excellent stuff. And we will all, on behalf of the whole group here, I know we had over 20 people here at one point, and just want to say thank you for taking the time, your evening time when you could be off work, to present to us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're all welcome. It's the pleasure's all mine. I like to do this, so.
It's a good thing for the community in that case. I've got your cheat sheet here, and I'll make sure to get a link to that in our group. And yeah, if there's anything we can ever do for you, or maybe when in-person events resume, if you happen to be in the US, would love to meet you in person.
Well, I'm actually hoping that at some point we're allowed to go again, and most likely I will travel to Seattle area, Redmond, of course. Microsoft's there, but I'm planning for a road trip. So if everything is possible again, I will definitely ping you and come by.
Thank you very much. All right, well, everybody, we will see you July the 15th to hear from Melissa, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks all.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.